So my name is Rick Adams. I'm a senior sales engineer for Hunters out of the U.S. East. I'm based out of Tampa, Florida. Glad to be here in New Jersey for the Fireside chat. Glad to meet everybody online as well, too.
That's awesome. But anyway, so you're here from Hunters. So as you're here from Hunters and you are one of our sponsors,
yes,
give me a little insight on what Hunters can do.
So Hunters effectively we're working on what we call about move beyond SIM. Okay, so we're effectively a SIM replacement. So if you kind of think about in terms of like SIMs, a lot of folks today are very, very unhappy with where their SIM deployments are. From a cost ingestion perspective, you kind of think about the fact is SIMs are very costly, right? Data ingest is extremely costly. The other thing that we do is we are really automating the mean time to identify and respond to incidents, okay? So what we're doing is we're automating the data onboarding process. We're taking best of breed data sources from all the various vendors out there, and we're effectively building that into a data pipeline. Now, our data pipeline is built on top of Databricks as well. So we actually do Databricks on the back end to actually align that, which is really cool. So we're actually building out a security data lake for our customers. So we're building that into a common schema, and then we feed it into what we call our detection pipeline. Now, the cool thing that Hunters does is right out of the box, Hunters has a number of hundreds of detectors that are built out of the box. So your analysts and I am curating and building detectors. They're not parsing data, they're onboarding data. We actually simplify the onboarding of the data process. And then effectively what we're doing is we then feed it into what we call our investigation engine. So what we're doing for an analyst, tier 1 to tier 3, is we're simplifying the time it's going to take them to onboard, detect signals from the actual sources that we're bringing in, and then we're doing the cross correlation of those data sources. So what we're actually doing is we're actually tying, for instance, your EDR source to your identity source, to your cloud source. And we're actually not only building out what the actual alert was, we're tying it to all the events in the attack chain. So that's what we're doing with Hunters, really kind of simplifying that time for the tier 1 to tier 3 analysts to identify and respond to those incidents. So that's essentially what we do in a 10,000-foot view.
That's awesome. So as I said, we have our SOC queen here, Natalie Baker, and Natalie has asked an amazing question, and actually two now.
Sure.
So the first is, are you a SOAR?
No, we are not a SOAR platform. So what we are, we do have essentially everything but the R in the SOAR, right? So we can do the automation and orchestration, but we're not the actual response, okay? So what we're doing is we're not a remediation engine. What we're going to do is give you the fidelity. We're going to cross stitch all the different data sources together and do the auto investigation. But the remediation sources are typically tied to third-party SOAR vendors. So for example, we partner with Tynes and Torque to actually build out playbooks that actually do the remediation steps for our customers, right? So that's not what we're doing. We're not focused on the remediation part of the SOAR. So we're not a SOAR platform now.
All right, and so now we got another question from her.
Sure.
Do you cross-reference to any compliance standards to make ops life easier?
Yeah. So, for example, if you think like compliance, I mean, you're talking about like NIST or something like that, or looking at like different like our. So one of the reasons why I asked the question is because one of the things that we align to from a detection perspective is we're aligning to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So everything we do with our platform is aligned to MITRE. And then in addition to that, we have a team of threat analysts that actually add additional threat techniques into the MITRE ATT&CK framework for our detection rules that are built into Hunter. So we actually show you the coverage, the gaps, and essentially what we call the what if scenarios on new data sources that we would onboard.
What about Fed?
So we're FedRAMP certified today. We're going through that process. So it's going to be, it's obviously it's a lengthy process, but today we are not FedRAMP certified. Yes.
All right. And so this is going to be the last question I take from Natalie on this. Dang, she's killing me today. Do you partner with Swim Lane at all?
So I don't know off the top of my head if we actually partner with Swim Lane. It's like, I don't know if that's something, I'd have to double check to see if we do that specifically, but I don't know if that's actually Jared, who's here, would probably know that better than me. But I don't know off the top of my head. So
that's awesome. And so, I'm trying to get more. We got a ton of people here, so I want to get more and more through. So not to cut you short, but if you can give any advice to somebody breaking into cybersecurity, and especially what you do, what advice would you give them?
So actually for me, I actually got into cyber about 7 years ago. I'm formerly Cisco. I actually came over to Hunters about a year ago. I got into actually the SIM space about a year ago too, as well. And I will tell you honestly, and I've heard a lot of folks talk about, careers and where they're trying to establish themselves. I've been in this business for 35 years. I'm going to tell you right now, this is clearly the space to be in, specifically on threat detection and analysis. And I'll tell you, this is an area that I think most folks should really focus. It's actually been the most valuable for me and actually my colleagues. And so I feel that, obviously the folks that are like kind of listening on this podcast, if you're kind of going through this, yes, you talked about the fact we don't have to go for formalized schooling, but I would definitely focus on, threat analysis and detection, because this is what we're actually doing on investigations. And that's typically where I find a lot of the growth is happening in the business. So that's kind of like where I come in from my perspective. It's only an opinion. It's not a fact. So that's where we're coming from.